Hey, my name is James Nicholson and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I've got this week's property news. As I say this every single week, it's another very busy week. We're going to talk EPCs, we're going to talk multiple topics on the renters' rights bills. We've got lenders that are cutting interest rates. We've got councils finding landlords 500 grand. And we've got other councils that have got a quarter of their property that shouldn't be rented out. So there's a lot to talk about here. If you're new around here and you haven't done already, do make sure you subscribe to the channel over there and hit that bell notification. We've just hit 44,000 subscribers. And by subscribing, you'll get all the latest property news, interest rate news, house price news, property investing news, and much, much more. And let's get some views on this video. How do we do that? Simple. Smash like, tickle like, do something to that like button. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm. I can't even say it, algorithm. And that really helps the channel grow. So thank you to everybody that does that. So, what's going on? A lot. As always, it's busy in the property world at the moment. You've got lots of legislation going through. You've got things being talked about and threatened. But these are the key points that we've discussed this week. So first, let's talk interest rates. So, multiple lenders have cut rates this week. And that's based off the fact that something called the SONIA swap rate has dropped. Now, the SONIA swap rate is a rate that's predicting where the Bank of England is going to end up. And that's dropped based off the fact that we're expecting the Bank of England to cut rates in August, which is a positive move for a lot of people that have got a mortgage. And so ahead of time, the SONIA swap rate drops. That gives banks, they're able to borrow money at a cheaper rate. And because the market's quieter at the moment, they're passing those cuts on to you. Now, HSBC and NatWest both cut their rates this week. I've made a longer video with all the details on that. NatWest have got the cheapest residential mortgage now. It's at 3.81%. We did have a rate like that 6 weeks ago, but rates went up again temporarily because of the bad inflation data. So they're back now at the best that they've been for about 12 months. NatWest is the one to check out. But do check out that video if you want to know more about the HSBC stuff as well. Some positive news. Let's talk positive news. Let's talk about Dorset Council. And so we made a longer video on this one as well. But Dorset Council have a scheme. And it's basically about working with landlords and helping getting people back into accommodation. And it's a really good scheme, in my opinion. Landlords get extra money for doing it. You get an extra £4,250 during the tenancy, which is really, really good. Plus, they can manage it for you as well. They can get all of your gas safe sorted. They can do the inventory. That will save you 15% roughly on agency fees as well. So that's another positive win. They'll also help the tenant with a deposit up to 12 weeks rent as a deposit. So it's not just an insignificant one. Very different to normal social housing contracts. And they'll give you a deposit if the tenant has got a pet. So there's lots of pros with that. I think it's a good scheme. I think other councils should check it out. And it is some support for landlords. It's working well already, according to them. 100 people have got back into accommodation now. So really positive. Go and check out the video if you're in the Dorset area. Or if you just want to know what's going on. And hopefully that gets rolled out to other councils. So that's a video worth checking out as well. Manchester Council. Let's talk about these guys. Going all around the councils here. So Manchester Council, what happened was a solicitor's firm did a freedom of information request and basically checked what standard the council accommodation is at. And it turns out that 1 in 4 properties that's managed by Manchester Council is not fit for people to live in. It wouldn't pass the new part of the renters' rights bill, the Better Home Standards part. It wouldn't pass that, meaning that it's dangerous. Potentially it's got mold and stuff like that. 1 in 4. That's crazy. If normal landlords had that bad a problem, you would get fines coming. You would potentially lose your ability to be a landlord in those areas as well. So it's quite shocking where you get all this pressure on normal landlords, but you see that the councils themselves are actually some of the worst landlords in the country. So it's interesting to see what's going on in other areas. Do go and check that out. That's Manchester Council. There's a video on that. Let's look at the EPC stuff. So 2 things that we've talked about on EPCs this week. One is mortgage lenders. There are some lenders now that, because they're worried about the new EPC legislation potentially coming through, they're not lending on 5-year deals at the moment. They'll only do 2-year deals, because the reasoning behind that is that they won't lend unless you've got a C or above for 5 years. So let's just say you've got EPC of D. They won't give you a 5-year deal just in case Ed Miliband's legislation becomes active in that time, because it's not clear whether you would be able to rent that property out still. And that's a liability, so lenders don't want that. Now, there are plenty of buy-to-let lenders that will rent on that. But if you have an EPC of C, you can get 2 things. You get more options for mortgages and you can get better rates. So there are better rates out there for good EPCs. And that's something that I think you'll continue to see with lenders going forward. Also, we did a long video, which is definitely worth checking out. The Mortgage Works, which is one of the biggest buy-to-let lenders in the UK, they did a survey of thousands of landlords that they've got of customers, just seeing, are they aware of the new EPC legislation? And most are not aware. They have no idea when the dates are and when that will go through, which is interesting. 28% of them said, we're definitely selling our property. So if that happens, that's crazy. And that will cause real problems for the private rental sector as well. And it was just really interesting to just see that most people aren't aware of this. The government's steaming ahead with this kind of stuff, but there isn't awareness out there on that. So go and check that longer video out as well. I think that's important. So we've got a few more things to cover: legal aid, renters' rights, and some major fines for landlords as well. But before we jump into that, I just want to give you one last chance. Well, you've got till Sunday at midnight to grab the fundamentals of property investing. It's a course that will teach you how to buy property below market value, how to add value to a property, how to set up a limited company the right way. That's very, very important as well. We'll also teach you how to then maximize the returns. Should you do that with an HMO or serviced accommodation? That's all included in that program for £20. Everyone else charges thousands and thousands of pounds for this kind of stuff. So do click on the first comment, grab that. It's going to go back up next week until midnight this week. It is £20. Hundreds of you have already taken that this week. So thank you to everyone that's invested in that. And make sure you go through the lessons and learn the knowledge that we've got in there. So next things, legal aid. That was increased this week, which was interesting. So legal aid has been stuck at around £130 for years. I think it was 30 years. And that's the process of, if you're getting evicted, you can get some legal aid support to send some letters, and ultimately you can get represented in court with more money. But this would stop that or help you with that initial process. That's been doubled pretty much to £250. It's a big increase. The awareness of that will help lots of tenants that have a difficult time at the moment, and that could make things a little more complex for landlords as well. So it's definitely interesting to hear about that. I don't have a massive problem with it. I think it's good to help people that are stuck and unfairly getting evicted. And so, yeah, people can go and check that out if they want to. Renters' rights. Now, this has been a hot topic all week. Tens of thousands of you, which is insane to me. Like, literally football stadium sizes of people have watched the content that we've made this week on the Renters' Rights Bill and the updates that have been going through. They've had some amendments that have been voted on that have passed. Some of them have been pretty good. First, we'll talk about pets. So the government were saying that initially you could require a tenant with pets to get insurance for that pet. So if they damage the property in any way, that you'll be insured and you can get the property rectified. Then they did a U-turn on that. They said, look, we're not going to allow you to do that. But then in the report stage in the House of Lords, it was talked about that they will allow you to increase the deposit. So you'll have your normal deposit, and then you'd have a separate deposit, which can be a maximum of 3 weeks rent, in order to protect for pets in the property. That, I think, is a move in the right direction, because that won't sway every landlord to have pets. But if it does a few, that's good, because how you were going to make it work was that landlords wouldn't have any protections. And while they can't discriminate against people with pets, it would be very easy to discriminate. You can't put it in the advert, but you get 10 applications in. The estate agent says, here's 5 people that are suitable. These 2 have got pets. You don't have to say a word to that landlord, to that agent. You can just pick whichever tenant you want, and more likely people will pick the ones without pets. So while the discrimination won't be there verbally or in writing, it would still be there. So this could help some people with pets, and I think that's good. Next is, in the Renters' Rights Bill, it was proposed that if you take your property back, one way that you can do that is because you want to sell your property. Good, right? And if you then didn't sell the property, because a third of transactions that try and sell never complete, and then you thought, you know what, this isn't selling, I need some money, I'm going to re-rent the property. The Renters' Rights Bill said that you wouldn't be able to re-let your property for 1 year after getting it back. Now, they've changed that to 6 months. It's still quite high, but I think that's much, much better. And the talk was that, look, if we're going to have someone that wants to put a property back on the rental market and we don't have enough rental stock at the moment, why would we penalise them and just make that property sit empty? It doesn't make sense. So they've moved that to 6 months. That's been amended, and that should hopefully stay in the final stage of the bill. We'll see. Another thing that was talked about, I don't think this one's going to be active, but they were talking about potentially making it so landlords cannot increase the rent more than once every 4 years. Yes, you heard that right. Once every 4 years. That's crazy. Now, that would cause major problems. And even tenants leapt on that video and said, well, yeah, sounds great, but then I'd get a huge increase, 20% maybe, and I won't have budgeted for that. I'd rather a small incremental increase every single year. Now, this is a proposal. I don't think it will get voted on and go through, but this is important to know what they're talking about in the Renters' Rights Bill. Now, the Renters' Rights Bill, there's about 4 videos that we made this week on that. They're really detailed and go into all the details, so make sure you go and check out all of those, and do grab off the back of those the ebooks on the Renters' Rights Bill as well. And lastly, Salford's Council. So I did a video that was really popular on Salford's Council and the glee that they had, that they fined 26 landlords 500 grand. Now, not 500 grand each, but 500 grand collectively. That's a huge sum of money. It worked out to 20,000 odd per landlord. These were HMO landlords that were getting their licenses rechecked and resorted and found to have breaches and problems in there. Now, this is really a huge sum of money. Should they have been fined? I don't know exactly on each case. I'm sure some of them should. Maybe 1 or 2 of them shouldn't have. But what it does show is that councils are going to up their pressure on landlords, and anytime they can collect a big fee like that, they're going to do it. Anyway, it's been a crazy, crazy week. Next week, we've got more Renters' Rights Bill stuff, so do make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell for that one. Also, do make sure you grab that Fundamentals of Property Investing. It's going up in cost next week, so why not grab it while it's £20 one-time cost in that pinned comment below. Check out all the other content as well on the channel, including this video right here.